Welcome to the latest edition of our TechLaw video series, where we'll be talking about the impact AI has on the workforce. I'm Jennifer Holyoake, a legal director in DLA Piper's London employment team, and I'm joined by Marta Borówka, a senior associate in our Warsaw employment team. Today, we're going to explore some of the ways in which AI can impact the workforce and what this means for employers in the tech sector. I mean, it goes without saying that AI has emerged as one of the most transformative forces in the technology sector, and this shift impacts not just operational processes, but it also impacts the workforce. And the impact is both at the collective level and individual level, ranges from the disruption caused by the efficiency, automation and innovation AI brings, all the way to addressing the business's talent needs in this ever-changing landscape. I mean, given the wide spectrum, what workforce impact have you seen, Marta?
Well, to take one end of the spectrum first, AI-driven automation in tech sector, much like in any other sector, is augmenting and in some cases replacing roles that involve repetitive or predictable tasks. And many administrative support or testing jobs are now being performed by AI systems. I am referring to, for example, automated software testing, AI-powered chatbots, or, for example, virtual assistants or code generation tools that streamline software development and reduce reliance on junior developers.
Yes, and while this is generating clear efficiency savings for companies, this has a knock-on impact on the workforce, resulting in either immediate or gradual headcount reduction and or variations to roles or terms of employment.
Yes, exactly. According to the data published by the World Economic Forum in the recent Future of Jobs report of January 2025, growing job roles in both tech and IT sector are foreseen to include, for example, digital transformation specialists, machine learning specialists, and various AI-adjacent software and applications developers. So the new roles are emerging, but more traditional ones are being automated. And as a result, according to that World Economic Forum report, employers from the tech sector have a higher tendency to reduce staff with less relevant skills. I believe it's 49% compared to 41% in other industries. Layoffs in the tech industry are actually something we have been witnessing over the past year as advisors. In fact, we observed that employers in the sector are increasingly making significant workforce reductions due to the implementation of technological innovations. And actually, some companies openly admit that AI is the quote-unquote culprit behind these decisions. And in any case, the trend suggests that automation and AI-driven efficiencies are becoming a major factor influencing employment strategies in the industry. And I think that these trends are also observed worldwide, where leading companies in the tech industry decide to reduce employment. In fact, in some of them, the percentage of workforce reduction reportedly reaches as high as 15%. And these changes were said to be related to these companies shifting towards AI-driven solutions in some way, shape, or form.
And I think it is certainly a trend, and one which is going to continue to grow. I think it's important to remember that mass layoffs have a significant impact on organizations, and that's not just from a workforce perspective, but also due to the operational, legal, and financial complexities that come with them. I mean, what would you say is some of the key process issues to think about?
I think that from a process standpoint, many countries have strict legal frameworks governing large-scale redundancies, requiring companies to follow specific procedures, and failing to do so can lead to serious legal and sometimes even reputational risks. Financially, layoffs can be costly, of course, as employees may be entitled to severance packages. The specifics, of course, will vary depending on jurisdiction. And then there's the labor relations factor, which is to say that in some cases, companies are legally required to consult with trade unions or employee representatives before making significant workforce reductions. From a legal perspective, it's safe to say that executing a mass layoff is always a major and disruptive undertaking, and one that often requires cooperation with employee representatives, trade unions, works councils, etc. And I think it can be especially tricky if AI is involved.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think when you consider how these issues play out in the context of deploying AI, it's important to consider the employment processes and related risks well in advance and as part of the organisational design. The question of any impact on the workforce might also need to be revisited in the future if it's only possible to predict so far ahead. But if the workforce impact is only considered once AI has been developed, purchased, or even deployed, it will often be too late. I think in many countries, there will be significant financial sanctions for failing to follow due process. And quite often, this process requirement is triggered at a point at which redundancies are being proposed or contemplated. And in addition, in some countries, there can even be criminal sanctions for individuals within the company and or the power to delay or prevent the implementation of AI going ahead. I mean, these rights and processes that we're talking about now, they exist regardless of any AI-specific legislation as they're contained in existing laws. But in addition to these, we are also seeing trade unions and employee bodies calling for more rights in connection with the use of AI in the workforce. If we take the UK, for example, the trade unions are calling for the employees to be consulted before AI is used, and even worker data trusts to allow unions to receive collective data on the impact AI is having on the workforce. I think this is particularly an issue for the tech sector, in my view, and I don't know what your thoughts are, Marta.
Oh, I completely agree. Redundancies are perhaps even more prevalent for the tech sector, as the World Economic Forum report I mentioned before also showed that tech companies are more likely to make staff redundant on the basis of their lacking skill set compared to other industries. So while AI will not replace all the roles, I hope, it may transform some of them so profoundly that in practice, they will be entirely different roles, which means that employees will need to adjust either way.
And I think one other thing you'd have to think about that scenario is whether the variation to the role was actually so substantial that it actually amounted to a redundancy of the old role. And if so, whether this triggered redeployment or retraining obligations on the business. I think even if it didn't tip over into a redundancy situation, in most countries there would be an employment process to follow to lawfully implement such variation.
Precisely. And with respect to redeployment and retraining obligations, I think that the first and major problem with reskilling is that it is not a quick or cheap process. It requires time and training resources and often financial investment. And some companies, especially those focused on short-term profitability, struggle to prioritize it. And also, unlike traditional job training, AI reskilling involves a learning curve, often requiring employees to learn certain skills or gain certain knowledge, which can take months to master just to soon be outdated. So we need to take into consideration that due to the rapid pace of AI development, this type of knowledge will certainly require constant updates. And the other thing is that for employers, reskilling isn't just a business move, but it may soon be a legal requirement. For example, the EU AI Act introduces strict regulations on high-risk AI systems, requiring human oversight over the use of these systems. But the catch is that the human overseeing AI must actually understand how it works. So take recruitment, for example. AI-powered hiring tools fall under the high-risk category, meaning companies can't just let them run unchecked, which means that at least to a certain extent, companies will need to upskill recruiters or HR in general to work alongside AI.
Yes, and I think that brings us to another important issue, which is AI literacy. I mean, as you pointed out, this is key for the roles which are interfacing or working alongside AI on operational basis. Given the challenges and timing issues with training and upskilling this area, it's something that needs to form part of businesses' long-term recruitment strategy now. I think AI literacy also needs to be considered at a senior level, given the significant impact AI can have, both in terms of the benefits and opportunities it presents and the challenges and risks associated with it. Clearly, those making the decisions what to develop, purchase, and deploy must have an understanding of what the AI use entails. And in some more regulated sectors, such as financial services, we are seeing some regulators in Europe requiring the internal control functions, such as compliance and audit, to have specific technological experience. And in the UK, the Financial Conduct Authority has stated that senior managers holding certain functions will be personally responsible for the safe and responsible use of AI in their area of the business. So I think it's clear there are several aspects of the workforce impact to consider. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed any other interesting developments in this area.
I have actually. On a side note, the tech sector has seen a noticeable rise in the number of professionals holding the intriguingly titled role of AI evangelist, which is interesting because until recently, the term AI evangelist was more commonly used to describe high-profile advocates of AI's broader societal applications. However, today, it has taken on a more corporate meaning, with companies actively hiring for these positions. For example, one of the largest companies in the tech sector recently posted a job listing for an AI safety practice evangelist, which actually reflects the growing industry focus on AI's ethics and responsible deployment and highlights the trend in the industry, one where broader AI literacy is no longer just a novelty, but it's actually becoming important for the company's strategy and operations.
And I think that's a really interesting development. I think it also feeds into the importance many companies are placing on the impact AI can have on employees at an individual level. So we've talked a bit today about the collective impact, but of equal importance is what impact interfacing with or operating alongside AI can have on employees' mental and physical well-being. For example, we've seen use cases where AI is used to provide real-time feedback to employees or provides information which could feed into the performance management of employees. However, consideration should be given to feedback or appeal mechanisms to allow an employee to challenge or appeal the information generated by the AI, or to even request a human review instead. I think similarly, employee statutory rights to flexible working and rest and the right to disconnect, they must all still be adhered to. And that might be an issue where the AI used generates outputs or provides automated responses to employees on a 24/7 basis.
Yes, and I would also say that the new roles and industry focus in general shows that AI is not solely about reducing headcount, but also holds the potential to create entirely new positions and roles within organizations. That point was actually well captured in the impact of AI on the labor market report published by the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change in November 2024. So a lot of conversation about AI and the future of work focuses on automation and worries about jobs being replaced. And it's true that some roles will be automated, but AI can also generate new job opportunities by making workers more productive and driving economic growth. Plus, AI could open the door to entirely new products and markets and industries, creating more demand for workers with new skills. Overall, I believe it's safe to say that the ultimate impact on labor demand will depend on how all these factors play out.
I completely agree. I think there are so many variables, but we can safely assume that AI will continue to have an increasing impact on the workforce. And against the backdrops of existing laws alone, these are very real issues which organisations are having to navigate now. Inevitably, it's also an area that we can expect to evolve in response to the various national and federal laws that are likely to develop, and also changes to the political landscape. And I think considering and planning for the workforce impact in advance of decisions on the development, purchase or deployment of AI will be key, as well as involving relevant stakeholders throughout. So thank you everyone for joining us today. To stay updated with the latest insights, subscribe to our TechLaw series on YouTube or your usual podcast platform. Thank you.